Yes, everyone, welcome back to the channel. A little disclaimer here to start off with. I am still here. I've just pretty much since before the Fulham game, which has been caught up with all sorts. But I'm back with a video, and a few days after we beat Spurs quite comfortably, albeit with the helping hand from Romero. But it's not even about him. This video is about United and where we are right now, because we've been singing it from the rooftop since the weekend. But 4 wins on the bounce in the league. 4 wins. Now, I don't want to come on here and gas up probably the bare minimum for a football club this size. I don't want to come on here and be like, we are smoking the 4 wins on the bounce pack or the haircut pack or whatever's been going about on social media. But United are one of the form sides in the league over the last month, which obviously raises a lot of questions about what could have been. But I'm not even going to live in that today, because I really want to just talk about where we are at right now, as opposed to this is where we could have been if we sacked Amorim sooner and whatnot. But the present is we're genuinely primed to finish in the Champions League places, because Carrick has come in and he's done 2 things that pretty much change everything in football, and actually are 2 key components of an interim period, which is belief and clarity. And I think we can see it and feel it as fans. The celebrations are different. The body language is different. The way the team moves together off the ball is different. Even the club content, that you can tell the dressing room is lighter. And for once, it feels like we're actually progressing and pulling in the same direction. And I don't think it's too crazy, the fact that it's happening in an interim period, because an interim, as I've said in my video about Oli, is supposed to steady the ship. Short-term vibe lift, bit of calm. We're keeping it simple. And Carrick hasn't just lifted the mood; he's simplified the structure and made the team functional again. Obviously, we can. I don't really want to talk about the summer right now. Who Ineos pivot to. Where Carrick stays, whether it's a big name or a young coach, where we finish. Who knows? The point is, at this moment in time, United obviously look like United again. And I've been saying this for ages, that if there's one club in England that can fast track a rebuild, it's United. But I think on that, it's quite interesting, actually, because it's, I've had fans try and tell me over the last few years, like, oh, I would take this manager for 5 years if it meant United were good again. If we were terrible for 5 years, if it meant we were right again. And I was like, what are we doing here? How can you? We're not a Tottenham, with all due respect. We're not a Newcastle. We're not even where Arsenal were at when they brought in Arteta. We shouldn't look at those clubs with the fact that they look at 5-year projects as kind of the benchmark and the blueprint. We shouldn't be looking at it like that. And I say that because, like I said, United for me have always been too big to be left behind. And as I've already said, if there's one club that can fast track it, it's United, because United, with the size of the club, the pull they still have, the finance involved, all it takes is, even if you're signing 4 or 5 players a summer, all it takes is getting most of them right. United could generally be winning the league in 2 years if they get the next two summers right. And that is with obviously a good manager. But that's why I don't like it when fans say either it takes 5 years to rebuild, or it took these managers 5 years to get it right. Not necessarily. They showed signs of getting it right sooner. It doesn't even take 5 years to rebuild, if we're being honest. I had fans telling me, because we talk about these kind of fans in a moment when I bring up Kobbie Mainoo, but like, you get loads of fans who are enamored with this manager. I've said before, manager FC is a bigger problem than player FC in this fan base. And a lot of people obviously will say, oh, well, people wanking over Paul Pogba, that's a bigger problem. I was like, yeah, but that's not happening anymore. And my biggest issue with it always the fact that you are so dead set on backing the manager at the detriment of every player. Excuse me 1 minute. I think my thing's disconnected.
There we are. Technical difficulties fixed. Sorry about that. Where was I? Yes, what was I discussing? Yes, about the fans and the who were attracted to Amorim and backing him no matter what. The point I was trying to make with that was the fact that these fans would say, "Oh, you want a rebuild, but you can't handle a rebuild. But a rebuild won't take 5 years." I have more time for managers who come in and are able to work with what's there than who come in and say, "Right, I need 11 new players from the off." Jurgen Klopp went into Liverpool, and that was a poor Liverpool team, and he did say to them, like, "We don't need a massive overhaul. I think I can win with what's there." Granted, a lot of players left anyway. If a manager believes he can work with what's there and spends more time working with it rather than complaining about what he has or hasn't got, I've got a lot more time for it. And I don't think this team is as bad as I've been gaslit to believe by fans. I say gaslit to believe. I didn't really believe it, but like very much in the camp of anything would have been an improvement on last season and top four was out of the question. Yeah, it was to a point because I thought there were still deficiencies in Amorim's system and with the personnel. But if I look at the team on paper, yeah, and people said, "Oh, but we had a back four with Ten Hag, it didn't work," and I said the same for myself in the sense of yes, but it depends because Amorim and Ten Hag both did the 3-1-6 going forward, and those tactics for especially from Ten Hag, were suicidal. You had 20-yard gaps between different banks in the team in the formation. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I get the league is tougher than it's ever been, and the parity is real. But it's true, and the other truth is this isn't an era where one firepower dynasty, if that's these big sensationalist like words. This is an era where it's guaranteed to suffocate everyone forever because I think it takes, like I said, it takes the right coach, the right window, and the right alignment, and United can do a 180 very quickly. And I think the only question with that is whether you trust the people upstairs to make the right choices, because I think you have to look at what's changed in 4 games. You got Bruno back playing as a proper 10 and his output has gone through the roof. He's relishing it. This 200 goal involvement stat, I don't know what to make of it because I'm seeing people say, well, actually, it's not entirely accurate. But for me, I don't think it's too controversial anymore to say it cements him as a United legend. I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to pretend he's perfect. I have criticized him, finals, temperament, even petulance at times, all fair. But I think as fans, we zoom in too much on imperfections of football players and we forget to appreciate what they're exceptional at. And Bruno is exceptional. I genuinely think that the only thing missing from his story, I think the Premier League title is what holds not having one and not having that many trophies. I think that's the last thing he needs for people to stop having debates, because I think he's got all the makings of a Premier League all-timer. The way he has taken this club when we have been objectively shit for about 5-6 years, not in a position to probably challenge for leagues. Really, when you look at the makeup of different squads and the poor squad building under 3 different managers potentially, the way he picks us up and carries us, can't fault that. Can't fault that. I'm telling you now, though, I enjoy watching United again. I look forward to the weekend. My weekend doesn't feel like it gets ruined anymore. I can go out to Spoons on a Saturday night, have a drink, and it's not because I'm upset at the result of the weekend. It's because I'm happy. I think, like I said, I think the biggest thing Carrick has done is simplified roles. He's stopped forcing square pegs into round holes, and he's put players back into positions that actually suit them. And because of that, you're seeing a squad that looks better, but really it's just the same squad being used properly. One thing we all criticised Amorim for was he wasn't able to platform what was there. We're seeing that. And I think what's good is because I think when people have said that, oh, but Spurs and Fulham are the real test, I don't actually disagree with what they've said with those. Because we've turned up against big sides over the years and won quite well. Yes, okay, maybe not as sustainably and dominant as the City and Arsenal games. But with these 4 games, we've faced different game states. You know, Fulham people would talk about Fulham playing just a low block, and they play a mid to low block. So they're very organized and they're very well coached under Marco Silva, but they're good in possession, do have a lot of quite front foot. They do surprise teams with that. So I didn't understand why fans were suggesting Fulham were just going to come to Old Trafford and sit back. Spurs, obviously with their helping hand with Romero, but physical, pragmatic and aggressive. And then obviously City and Arsenal, the 2 top dogs, and they're different kinds of control and threat. And we've come through all of it. Yes, you can play devil's advocate and say short-termism. Cool. We'll cross that bridge at the end of the season. We'll talk long-term model then. We'll have a good look and talk about it then. But after 18 months, roughly, of abject performances, losing every other week, winning once a month, of course I'm going to enjoy winning football matches now. 4 wins in a row, man. I feel like we deserve to feel good about that based on what's happened. Common denominator in this streak is Kobbie Mainoo. People have been talking contract drama, attitude, family stuff, all this noise. Right now, I don't care, because what I care about is this kid broke into United at 18, started for his national team at 19, and he's 20 now, and he actually looks like he belongs at the top level. And a lot is made of the United DNA. This here is United DNA. Platforming the youth in a system that gets the best out of them. Yeah, okay, courage and success, but particularly with the youth. And I'm not going to lie, parts of the fan base turned into a pariah. Not everyone, but enough people, because they were so obsessed with justifying why he wasn't playing, because they were basically in love with this failing manager of Amorim. Let's have it right. He wasn't pulling up trees, was it? Now look at the reality. The only 4 matches he has started this season in the league, we've won all 4. We're on a 4-game winning streak. Don't know if you knew this. Drink every time I've said that this video, to be honest. Correlation isn't always causation, but let's not pretend there's nothing here, because Kobbie gives you control, security, and he makes the midfield function. And now he's strutting out at Old Trafford with the match-going fans behind him, because those fans always stick with academy players. That sentimental side of United is still alive, and it brings me genuine joy seeing not just him, the other players, with belief again, and a manager that trusts him, a manager that lets him make mistakes and express himself, because truth always comes to light. This kid is a baller, and I think he's still got levels to go, which we're seeing across the squad. Bruno obviously hitting double figures, output machine. Cunha's improving, he's impacting games. Dalot, I've been very critical of him, but he's looking like himself. He's looking good. He's looking what he can do again. He's looking good at that. He's not being used as a pseudo winger at wing back, trying to stand up fullbacks and do step overs. We've put him at right back. And I've always been critical of him, because it's like, I know what attributes he has, but he's such a dumbass sometimes, and he can have his bozo moments. But that guy that won Player of the Year under Ten Hag, we're seeing that. He's so good at progressing the ball in midfield. And we're playing him in a role that suits him. Lisandro Martinez, don't want to get carried away, but he has looked like the best ball-playing centre-half. Not just in the league, but even maybe in the world, these last 4 games, at least in conversations. He's been so pivotal, and in terms of ball progression, and then defensively as well, he's so good. I think his genetics of being short as hell, right? I think it's the only thing that stopped him from being in certain conversations, because I think his level and mentality are outrageous. Saint Lamens, 2 clean sheets under Carrick. We were begging for clean sheets. What did we have? Like 2 in 30 games or something crazy like that. And I think the stat that matters, I don't like focusing on XG, but not one team has created more than 1 XG from open play against United since Carrick came in. And I put that down to Steve Holland as well. I don't think that's luck. I think it's structure. I think it's spacing and compactness. It's rest, defense, and transition control. Like, all these signs are just slapping us in the face. And I think what it makes the last 14 months even more baffling. But I'm not going to go back there. I don't really want to go back there. Now it's about, like, looking forward. Obviously, we've got West Ham later today. Hopefully we can make it 5 on the bounce. And as United fans, you know, all the heartache, brain ache, pain, we almost forgot what that feel-good factor was, or at least supposed to feel like. But we can't take our foot off the gas, because what we got, 13, 14 games left. You know, every one of them is a cup final. One game at a time. And go get that Champions League football. So let's enjoy the ride, because I feel like we deserve it after what we've had to endure. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe if you're new, hype the video if you can, and I'll see you next time. Laters.